and welcome to Scare You to Sleep. I'm your host, Shelby Novak, and I'm here to read you a bedtime story. This week, I have for you a story by a new author to the show, Jon Saks. Tonight, Jon has for us Familiar. There was something about her face. I couldn't figure out what it was, but I had seen her before. I didn't know when, where, or how. There was just something about her that felt familiar. Melissa snapped her fingers in front of my eyes. She was insulted that I had stopped paying attention to her story. Stories, more accurately. This was supposed to be a girls' night out, to catch up, just the two of us. Yet my eyes seemed to be constantly drifting away, back towards this woman, sitting alone at the end of the bar. She had this flowing red hair that slid down her back. Her red dress seemed to melt into the bar stool. The way she tapped her pinky on the martini glass was hypnotic. I couldn't tell what she was looking at. Was she alone? Was she waiting for someone? If so, who? Who was worthy of that woman?
Are you listening to me?
If you have to ask, the answer is probably no. I didn't say that to her, although I wanted to. Girls' night was typically Melissa talking and me nodding. Her current predicament revolved around a colleague at work who was showing her up and creating tension. This felt very familiar to another recent girls' night predicament. They were starting to merge. Or maybe everything she said just sounded the same. Remember Charlie Brown's teacher? That inaudible buffering static anytime they spoke? That was what Melissa sounded like after a couple drinks. Who can blame me for being significantly more intrigued by the silent stranger than my yammering, whiny bestie? What did the stranger sound like? More importantly, why did I care?
Do you want to go? Are you tired?
I nodded and said, yeah. Then I apologized. I wish I hadn't. I was so sick of apologizing to people who made me sick. Coffee was not helping. I had been zoning out all day. Usually, caffeine will help me correct course and stay on task, but today was different. I felt groggy and foggy, sloggy. I was rhyming mood patterns in my head, clearly a bad sign. I felt a tap on my shoulder, and it took me 2 seconds to even turn.
Chopped?
It was Wednesday, or hump day, as the kids say. This meant me and Vanessa would be getting lunch at Chopped, our preferred destination for salad. I love Chopped, but I was less in love with spending an hour with Vanessa, who was gearing up for her wedding. It was 2 weeks away to the day. She emphasized the word 2 weeks and day. She was speaking in bold, while my words could barely register a soft gray. My nodding was doing all the talking. If my head rolled off the back of my neck, would she even notice? I doubt it. At least my salad was good. I didn't need to pay attention to know what she was blabbering about. Wedding, her fiancé Theo, honeymoon, yada yada bing.
Are you okay?
It took me 3 seconds to respond. That's a long time to answer a relatively simple question, especially when you're staring directly into the eyes of the person who asked it. I nodded. Thank God I still had a neck to show I was alive. Spin class. I thought this would help me clear my head, but all it did was ramp it up. That woman. I couldn't get her out of my head. That feeling when you see someone for the first time and there's something cosmic pulling you both together. You can't describe it. It sort of just exists in the air. I had felt that before. More than I would like to admit. This was more than that. It's both tragic and beautiful that we're able to feel such deep love over and over again, even after our hearts have been metaphorically ripped out of our chests on more than one, or, if I'm being honest, at least 5 occasions. It wasn't attraction to this woman, although she certainly was beautiful. No, sadly, I was attracted to men. Most days, I wish that was not the case, considering how disappointing they had proven to be over the years. If I could flip a switch and say I wanted to be with this woman, I would. But it wasn't that. This was something beyond. I felt drawn to her, as if I knew her, and she knew me. Ever since I had left the bar with Melissa, it was almost as if she was following me. Her essence, it was warm, whatever it was. I cut spin class short. I had to find her. Again. It was packed, as it usually was. Felice was a very popular spot in this part of the city, regardless of the day or time. Some places lose steam after a couple months or a year. Felice was holding steady. It somehow seemed to attract all the most desired clients. First daters, longtime couples, groups of friends. Felice covered a lot of ground. I was probably the only one there tonight who was alone. I sat towards the end of the bar, one seat over from where I had last seen her. My head was on a swivel. I couldn't stare straight ahead for more than a minute without turning backwards to see if she was walking in. It had been almost an hour, and I was on my 3rd drink. I was nervous. First date jitters. Something I had not experienced in over 6 months, when me and my fiancé had broken it off. Well, I had broken it off. Everyone had the same question.
But he was such a nice guy. What happened?
He was such a nice guy. So nice. But I felt as if I was just going through the motions. If I felt that before getting married, how would I feel after getting married? I didn't want to find out. My parents had gotten divorced. More than once. Not to each other. That would have been odd. No, I knew myself well enough that I had to know without a shred of doubt that my one would be the one. And sadly, Henry was not the one. Part of my jitters came from having to defend the seat. The seat, her seat. There had already been 2 people who had asked if that seat was available. I said I was saving it for a friend. I unleashed my most winning smile. I even did a hair flip for the second guy. Is he taller than me? That's what the second guy said. It was a good line. I actually laughed. If I hadn't been on a mission, I might have gotten him to buy me a drink. But the smile and giggle he had pulled out of me was more of a defense mechanism than a natural human reaction. The woman, the stranger, the way I gazed towards her, that was natural, primal. Where was she? Nice to see you again. I turned towards the bartender. He was striking, almost certainly an actor, model, both, 6'2", chiseled, clean, not the type of man I would forget that I met. Martini and 2 limes. I look over my shoulder. Even though he was looking into my eyes, his dreamy, blue eyes. For a moment, I thought that Paul Walker had not died and was now a bartender working undercover. Or did you want to try something new tonight? He smiled. His teeth were whiter than snow. The lighting in here was dim, but not that dim. Unless he was that dim, confusing me with someone else. Her? Oh my God. Was he confusing me with her? Yes. That was all I could afford to say. He kept smiling, but his eyes wrinkled, needing clarification. You want to try something new? No, I mean, yes, I would like the martini. 2 limes? Yes, please. I flipped my hair. He flashed his snowy whites and then turned to make my drink. I checked my watch. It was 7:23, the exact time from the last night when I first saw her. I know it was 7:23 because we were supposed to meet at 7, and I kept checking my watch to see how late Melissa was going to be. 23 minutes, as it turned out. That was when I saw her, sitting next to where I am right now, staring at nothing and everything all at once. My martini arrived quicker than expected. I don't even like martinis, normally. But this tasted great, grand, elegant. This is her key to the party. I had never been hit on this much in my whole life. Every 5 minutes, a new man and occasionally woman would saddle up towards me and unload some pickup line, trying to gauge whether I was alone or waiting for someone. Was this her life all the time? Batting off suitors with her verbal fly swatter? I'd always told myself the quiet life of solitude was a nice one. I suppose a little flattery here and there will get me somewhere. I don't know where exactly, but hopefully the destination involves finding her again, so I can figure out where I know her from. It's 9:52. I've had 4 martinis. The first 3 went down like a waterfall. It was only on round 4 did I begin to pace myself. My verbal fly swatting was feeling a little more delayed. If I don't get out of here soon, I might actually engage with one of these random suitors, and that meant derailing the mission, which was not an option. Stay the course, find the stranger. Time to pay the bill. I waved towards Paul while trying not to fall off my stool. On the house. Excuse me? I asked Paul. You earned it, he said, with a wink. Earned what? And how? I was curious, but not enough to question it, and certainly not curious enough to pay the actual cost. It was bedtime. Tomorrow was a new day.
I saw you.
I turned, groggy. Vanessa was standing above my desk with an inquisitive smile. She had her purple boots on today. She must have a date after work. Huh? That was about all I could muster to respond with. 4 martinis is about 4 too many for me. Doubly so considering I had drank the previous night as well. I was feeling lushy. My wardrobe was thrown together in a fury of hungover panic. Nothing matched. She would never dress like this. Does she get hungover? I can't imagine her being anything less than perfect. Vanessa was explaining where she saw me.
Catching a cab. Outside Equinox? While smoking? I tried calling out, but I guess you didn't hear me. I thought you hated cabs, and gyms, and smoking.
I don't know what she's talking about. Maybe her purple pumps had made her extra ditzy. Must have been someone else, I told her.
She looked exactly like you. I wish I had taken a picture.
Maybe next time? I winked after I said it. I had never winked before. Staring at my computer screen, I felt a huge rush of disappointment. These Excel pivot tables were suddenly a massive waste of time. What was I doing with my life? This is not the first time I had thought this. Not even this week. But normally these thoughts would be eradicated by the calm wave flowing through me after I remembered the size of my bi-weekly paycheck, which allowed me the comfort of living in one of the most exciting cities in the whole world. Not today, though. Today, everything felt dim. What did I need? It came to me quickly, like a flashing neon sign. I needed a cigarette. It was windy. I couldn't even light my Parliament. A dashing gentleman who looked exactly like Patrick Bateman from American Psycho came up to me and cupped his hands ever so gently around mine to create a little wall to block the wind. It worked. I was lit. So was the cigarette. His name was Jared. He worked in advertising. I was sold. I gave him my number. I never gave out my number to strangers. I also hadn't smoked a cigarette since college. Back then, it was a way to mingle with cute boys. I hated smoking. Vanessa wasn't wrong about that. But it felt nice today. I can see the appeal. You get to put your life on pause and take a moment to just chill out and stare at all of the... Oh my God. It's her. And she's walking right towards me. She was 2 blocks away, but I could see her as if she was right in front of me. Everything else looked blurry, except for her. She was crystal clear. What do I do? Do I just start talking, ask how we know each other? Oh my God. She's stunning. It's a black dress this time. It was cold out, bitter, yet she didn't even need a jacket. Maybe her heavenly red hair kept her warm. The sun seemed brighter on her than anything else in her orbit. as if it was her own personal spotlight. She was close now. 50 feet, 40, 30, 20, 10. Oh my God, say something, say something. I opened my mouth, and all that came out was cigarette smoke. So I followed her. My legs were becoming heavy, as if I had bricks for ankles. I was sweating. The cold, bitter wind had lost all effect. My stomach was queasy. The martinis had blossomed into tiny swords, stabbing at my liver. The way her arms softly swung, like children kicking their legs back on a swing set as they reach their toes for the stars. How can one person have this much confidence? I had to know more. I had to know it all. It had been 6 blocks before I remembered that I had a job with people who were no doubt going to notice that I had not come back to my desk, and yet I simply did not care. To not know is a great feeling. Risk. Cherish risk. That's what my grandmother told me the year before she passed away. I never paid much attention to that. Until now. My grandmother had such spirit to her. Her philosophy on life was so simple, so sweet. She lived to be 90. It must mean something to cherish the rush of risk. Not knowing. It's why people describe the most alive they've ever felt as when they were faced with death. I used to feel this way. When I was younger, I used to take risks before life strangled the death out of me. She was heading into the subway, which meant I was heading into the subway. The platform was empty, except for us. I was shocked. This part of the city during this time of day, I would have thought it would have been shoulder to shoulder, but it wasn't. Just us. She was standing all the way on the far end of the tracks, staring directly ahead in her blissfully black dress. I tried to nonchalantly move further and further down the track, closer and closer towards her. She didn't notice. She never seemed to notice anything. It was as if the world was moving at precisely her speed. I had to get close enough so I could get onto the same subway car. The train was pulling in. She got on, which meant I was getting on. She sat in the furthest seat. I sat in the middle, opposite side, so I could pretend to stare above or around her in that direction. But really, I was just staring at her, and only her. How did I know her? On the tip of my tongue. That's where she was. It felt so close, yet so far. I raced through the letters of the alphabet, hoping for one of them to pop out and lead me into the direction of our origin. Nothing was illuminating. I couldn't even tell how old she was. She seemed roughly my age, but more graceful, more mature, more worldly, more youthful. She was a contradiction of the most wonderful order, and now the train was stopping. But we had not arrived anywhere. The train and us were just sitting in silence. I waited for an announcement, Nothing. More silence. An avalanche of quiet. She continued to stare straight ahead. I kept my head on an exhilarating swivel. The odds of me not only finding this woman again, but also being in such close proximity seemed monumental. Surely this was meant to be. Whatever that being was, it was meant for this. We had been brought together for something. I never believed in signs from the universe, but this was so much further than a sign. This was the universe slapping me squarely across the face and stuffing my nose into my own destiny. There was not even a risk to take. This was on a big platter, right in front of me. Time to make it my own. I stood up, and the doors opened. Where were we? The lights were flickering in and out. I couldn't get a read on what stop was next. It was pitch black on both sides of the car. I tried tilting my head to get a better read of what was out there, but I couldn't see anything. Every cosmic force in the universe seemed to be aligning just so that me and this stranger could be together. I had to say something. It didn't even matter what at this point. If anything was meant to be, this would be that. I turned towards her. She was getting off the train, through the back entrance, lowering herself down onto the subway tracks. Finally, I spoke. Hey! Hey. What a brilliant thing to say. I've had pets that could have come up with a more interesting initiation of a conversation. I stood up and walked over towards the exit, which had now become an entrance to some great unknown. She was walking without a care in the world, through the pitch black down the train tracks, as confident as I had ever seen her. There seemed to be no difference between a bar, a bustling city street, or an underground subway track. Wherever she was shining. She got off, which meant I was getting off. I could barely see anything. In fact, the only thing I could see was her red hair. It was like a campfire crackling in the summer air. As she moved, I could see glimmers of her almond skin gliding through the tunnel. I had to say something.
Excuse me?
She didn't budge, but I could see something up in front of her, way beyond her. A light, a burning orange light. She had transformed into a silhouette, although that's how she always looked, regardless of where she was. Her essence seemed to exist in a painting, something to be studied and admired, but never touched. I called out for her again.
Where are you going?
She stopped, which meant I stopped. Her body looked frozen, literally in its tracks. The tunnel was cloaked in shadows, but I could see one thing. Her fingers, slightly shaking, they seemed to be balling into a fist, and then her head tilted quickly once, twice, and then a third time. Each tilt seemed to be more sudden and violent until I heard a crack. Her head was now hanging off like a yo-yo, swinging around towards her lower back. For the first time, we locked eyes. The tunnel was now shaking. I could see her mouth expanding. It seemed to engulf her face until her eyes drifted into obscurity. Teeth. I could see teeth chewing out of her face where her nose had been. Skin and bones began dripping onto the tunnel floor. I could see the blood flowing down the tracks toward me. Her arms began to contort. The veins in her arms began to cut through her skin and wrap around her torso like snakes, slithering up and down her legs, which were now digging into the tunnel floor. This new beast was taking shape, fully formed. It began to walk towards me, leaving behind what I had known previously. Step by gargantuan step, until it was right in front of me. Breathing down as it hovered so far up, its forehead was nearly touching the ceiling. It began to lower its jellyfish eyes until they were right in front of mine. I couldn't move. All I could do was get lost in the shadows, hovering around the silhouette of this perfect creature. It wrapped its arms around me. And then everything turned to fire.
Last stop.
I woke up, sitting on the subway train. In her seat, the MTA worker was standing above me.
Last stop, gotta get off.
It was dark out, but we were outside. What stop was this? He told me. I was far from home. I got off the train. The lights inside turned off as soon as I stepped out. I could see my breath as I walked, yet I felt warm, as if I was sitting around a fire. The street was empty, as if it belonged to me. I could have called a cab or found another subway, but I decided to walk. I couldn't tell you how far it was. I'm not even sure how I found my way. I just listened to the night, and it guided me all the way back until I was sound asleep in my own bed. Was it a dream? This wasn't the first time I had woken up and wondered such a thing. There were several occasions in my life, whether for good or mostly ill, in which I had wondered if the previous night had actually happened. I checked my phone. It was the most texts I had ever received, at least since word had gotten out about my engagement. And then, the end of my engagement. Co-workers and friends, all wondering where I was and if I was all right. A stern email from my boss, wondering the same thing. I held myself for a moment, debating who to respond to first and what to say when I did. But rather than say anything, I just dropped my phone into the garbage. Then I went back to sleep. Cherish, risk. The words played on a slow loop in my head. It was the best sleep of my life. When I woke up again, it was dark. For my whole life, I had found the morning sun to be beautiful, nature's blanket. Yet now, I found myself drawn to the twilight. How beautiful it was to admire the world in its slumber, its most pure state. I felt invigorated. I walked out of my apartment into the street without a destination. Where was she? I had found her before. I'd be able to find her again. Let the night be my compass. I walked. Friday nights in the city were usually combustible with energy. That's why people moved here, to feel connected to infinity. The opportunity to step out of your home and into endless possibilities. Yet the streets were bare. I knew it was just a matter of time until I found her again, in her beautiful, natural state. Above the surface, she gave the world what they wanted to see. Below the surface, hidden away, was her true beauty, too magnificent for the artificial world, which is how I had come to see it now. My whole life, I had lived as everyone else, putting on a facade, doing what I thought the world expected of me. Now I had found the real world, the one that embraced the shadows where life and death held hands as the moon and sun continued to spin. And then I saw it. That light, that burning orange light, waving towards me, while its fingers dragged across the sable air. I had walked so far my feet were now touching dirt, surrounded by woods. The skyscrapers and brownstones and condominiums had been left behind. Now I was surrounded by only one thing: fire. It was swirling all around my skin. I could feel my feet lift up off the dirt. As I floated, I could hear her. So soft, so delicate, chanting as if she was gently pushing me in my crib, trying to lay me down to sleep. But she was not alone. I could hear more of her, chanting softly, perfectly in rhythm, unified. I could see them all, wrapped around trees, guiding me up into the night sky with their black eyes. I was beyond the trees now. I could see the world below my feet, on fire. Their words echoed through me in eternity. This is no longer their world. This is no longer their world. This is no longer their world. I could see the end now, and I had never felt more alive. Thanks for listening, and thank you so much again to my author this week, Jon Saks. I really enjoyed producing this story. It's so different. It's a very unique story, and I really enjoyed reading it, and I liked the ending, and I liked producing it and editing it. Fun all around. So thank you again, Jon. And if you'd like more from the show, if you'd like more news about the show, you can follow the show on social media at scareyoutosleep on all the socials. You can follow me personally at Shelby B. Novak on all the socials. I'm mostly hanging out over on Instagram these days. Instagram and a little bit on Twitter, but mostly on Instagram. And if you'd like bonus episodes, you can join this show's Patreon, patreon.com/scareyoutosleep, where you can get ad-free episodes, which is helpful for those of you who like to actually sleep to the show, and bonus episodes. So check that out. Again, patreon.com/scareyoutosleep. And if you'd like a story considered for the show, whether it be nonfiction or fiction, you can send that to scareyoutosleep@gmail.com. I will say, I think a couple people might get confused between fiction and nonfiction. Just real quick, fiction is the fake one. Fiction, fake. Just remember that. And nonfiction is true. I've had a couple true entries sent in that were I've had a few fictional stories, and the subject line says nonfiction, and when I read them, it's clearly fiction, and not in like a trying to pull the wool over my eyes type way, like this was supposed to be read as a true story, but it was actually fake. No, like I think that it's an easy thing to mix up. I still, sometimes when I figure out my left and right, I have to do the thing with my hands where I make an L with my hands. figure out left and right. So I get it, it's no big deal. But I just wanted to throw that out there. Fiction, fake. Fiction, fake. What else? Oh, nope. I had it and then I lost it. Oh, that's right. If you'd like more from me in a more casual setting, you can check me out on the Bloody Disgusting podcast, where I am now a permanent co-host. And this coming week, we're going to be doing a deep dive into the movie Club Dread, which I'm very excited about. I haven't seen it probably since it came out, and I'm very excited to watch it this weekend, so we can do a deep dive on that on Monday. And let's see, I think that's all the housekeeping. Now we're getting into the ramble, so if you'd like to turn off the episode because the ramble isn't your speed, then that is totally understandable. Good night. And here we are at the ramble. So today I got to interview someone who I was really excited about. It'll probably be on next week's episode of the Bloody Disgusting podcast. It's not like a big secret or anything. But it hasn't been announced yet publicly, so I don't know. I'm still new at sharing a podcast with other people. So I don't know what I can say and what I can't. But I got to interview someone really cool today, and I was very excited, and it went really well. And speaking of the Bloody Disgusting podcast, there's a video available on the Spotify. If you listen on Spotify, the whole video for the podcast is available on there. I think we just haven't figured out where to land the video for any other platforms like YouTube at the moment. I'm sure it'll be other places soon. But for now, if you use a Spotify app on your TV, I think it works on the TV, but anywhere else, you can get the whole video. So that's super fun. And which is going to be exciting for my interview. I'm so stoked for that. And if you follow the Bloody Disgusting podcast also on Instagram, we'll post clips of the video. So yeah, I know that podcasts, I still frequently get people who find me on social media and they're like, oh, I've listened to you for a long time and I didn't know what you looked like. I even met a few people at Creep by Econ who said that. And I think it's fun. I think that's a fun aspect of podcasting. And now that video podcasting is becoming more prevalent, is almost, I don't know, it takes away some of the mystery a little bit. And it's really been an exercise for me in getting used to looking at my own face. It's been hard, I have to admit. On Instagram in particular, usually they'll tag me as a collaborator, so it shows up on my feed as well, the clips. And sometimes I'm just oof, that body dysmorphia hits real hard. And I'm like, wow, who is this ugly ghoul? And I can't even watch the clips. It's so bad. It's a new thing I'm learning about myself. It's bad. I promise I don't hate myself, but I think sometimes I definitely understand sometimes actors. Oh, that was a really fast car. What a cool guy. What a cool guy, right? It's late at night, and sometimes people like to race down the main road by my house late at night, which is so dangerous because it's not I don't live in the downtown area, but it's this is still Los Angeles. There's still people out at night. It's not the fucking middle of nowhere, my hometown, where literally the streets are empty at night. Anyway, sorry, tangent. You might have not even heard that. I don't know if the microphone even picked that up. And you're like, what are you even yelling at? Doesn't matter. Oh, here he comes. He's coming back. Or it's a different guy. I don't know. Cool guy. Super cool. Anyway, yeah, I promise I don't I don't know. I don't hate myself. It's just, I was saying, I understand those actors who are I can't watch myself and stuff. I get that now. It's so strange. But I'm getting more used to it, so that's good. And yeah, what else? Baking corner? Did I do a baking corner last? Oh, I mentioned I was going to make an apple strudel, miniature ones. I didn't do it. I do have the stuff for it now, though, and I think I'm going to make a galette, apple galette. I think that's how you pronounce it. It's French. It's basically an apple pie where it's just free form. You just fold the sides of the pie dough over, it's not in a pie tin. It's not structured, basically. And so I think I'm going to make one of those. I got the stuff for it. I have pie dough that I made last week that I froze, and I just haven't made it this week. Today especially. This week was pretty busy. So I apologize. I apologize. I didn't make a baked good that you won't even get to eat. I don't know why I'm apologizing. It's late. I'm tired. I had a long day. I had like back-to-back meetings. I had that interview today, which was so exciting. But whenever you interview like a celebrity, especially one that you're like really excited about, you know, and this happens for like a lot of other stuff, but this is just part of my job. You're like, my adrenaline, you know, just spikes. And it was this morning, like the interview was this morning, and my adrenaline just like spiked. And then I had to roll into a meeting like right after that, like literally like right after that. In fact, the interview, I kind of wish it would have gone longer, but I couldn't. I had a thing, which is so weird to be like, hey, celebrity, I've actually got a thing I need to get to. And he said that he was really enjoying the conversation. So anyway, it was exciting. And I can feel my body crashing right now. And so that pie might need to wait another day. And yeah, so anyway, I'm going to go. I don't have much to say. I don't think there's anything else I need to plug. I don't know. I feel like this isn't a very long... Oh, it's a decently long ramble. It's not bad. It's not bad. For some reason, I felt like I didn't say much this week. I don't know. I'm going to do another ramble, though, for Patreon, like a full-length one. Did I mention this last week that I recorded a whole 45-minute ramble? And I was like, never mind, no one needs to hear all this. I feel like I got a little too personal, so I just deleted the whole thing. It's not even there for me to like release if I ever decide. It's literally, it's gone. I nuked it. Sorry about it. Sorry to tease you like that, but I do want to do a ramble soon, and I want to get back to the picture of Dorian Gray now that my voice is back to normal. So excited about that. And yeah, so getting back to Picture Dorian Gray, rambles. I'm almost done with The Guided Nightmare, the sequel to The Funeral Parlor. I decided to rewrite parts of it. I'm being a little finicky about it. I don't know why, but I am. So I rewrote like the whole intro. It doesn't matter. You'll see. And yeah, okay, I'm going to go. And I hope you have a fantastic weekend. And sending you so much love and light and good vibes. And I hope something like really special happens to you this week. Like something really cool, like just like one really neat thing happens to you this week. I'm sending you that vibe. And I hope you drink your water. Drink your water. Wear your sunscreen. And go get some sleep. Sweet dreams.